Okay, looks like we have all of our Finance Committee members, so I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Director Schmidtke, if you can call the roll.
Council President Furman.
Present.
Alder Carter.
Present.
Alder Verveer.
Here.
Alder Vitiver.
Present.
Alder Evers.
Here.
Alder Figueroa Cole.
Here.
Chair, you have quorum.
Great, thank you. Do we want to do the quick tech intro, even though we don't have anybody registered?
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay, welcome to our virtual meeting. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. Members of the committee, if you're able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you're able, please activate your video when you're speaking. In this meeting, panelists have the ability to mute and unmute themselves. Panelists also have the ability to add pronouns after their names if they choose. Please do not alter the current naming convention. Simply add text after your name. Please use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. Staff, please use the raise hand feature when you're asked a question. The chair will do the best to call in committee members in the order in which hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. We do not have any members of the public wishing to speak tonight, so President Furman, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So we don't have, as noted, we don't have anybody for public comment, so we will move on to disclosures and recusals. Do any members of the body have any disclosures or recusals to make? Okay, not seeing any. So then we'll move on to our consent agenda. Do any members have items that they wish to have pulled? I will say that we should pull item 15, which is a discussion item. And we do have a registrant for item number 14. That person's name is Calvin Brace, and he's from Focus Counseling. And he supports, and he does not wish to speak, but is available to answer questions if anybody has questions. Are there any items that alders would like to see removed from the consent agenda? Alder Verveer.
Thank you, President Furman. I do have a question or two for city staff on agenda item 14, please.
Okay, so we won't include item 14 in the consent agenda. Any other items that people would like to see not removed from consent? Okay, not seeing any. Alder Carter, can I get a motion for consent not including 14 and 15?
Yes, I move approval of the consent agenda, items 2 through 13.
Great, can I get a second? Thank you, Alder Verveer. Thank you, Alder Carter. So I see any objection, I'm going to assume approval by unanimous consent. Great, and we'll move on to item number 14. Alder Verveer, the floor is yours.
Thank you again. So Jim, my question is pretty simple, and that is, could you give us an update as to where things stand now with the lease that the county has at Madison Plaza Hotel, and any additional information you might share as to what we in the CDD or the county are doing in terms of finding other hotels if we can't extend the lease at Madison Plaza Hotel?
I'll do my best, Alder Verveer. I think though there have been twists and turns in over the course of the last month or two, it appears today that the lease that both Dane County has and the arrangement that the city has with the former Plaza Hotel will end on June 30th as originally intended. Dane County has expended a fair amount of energy to attempt to extend that contract at the plaza. There had been discussions about extending through the month of August. Those conversations at the end proved not to be fruitful, and so I think the county is of the mind today that their stay will end on June 30th, just as ours. The county continues to search for other hotel properties in which they might provide shelter services to people that are currently at the plaza. There are information that I received earlier today. There are somewhere in about 85 numbers of people that are being supported at the property by the county. And there are approximately 35 people that are at the property that are being supported with the city. We both bodies have been working with their respective service providers to connect as many people as possible into housing. Those efforts actually over the long history of the vulnerable population hotel that Dane County has have been quite successful. And they continue to work, and both for our stay at the former Plaza, both the city and the county, as people left the property either to go into housing or to go to other arrangements, those rooms were being filled by others. That arrangement stopped in the first part of April, as it became clearer and clearer that June 30th was going to be the actual end date. And so in both cases, service providers are working with individual guests at the hotel to develop post June 30th plans. In the case of focused counseling, and if you want to get into greater detail, Alder or other members, Cal Brace is here from focused counseling. But a couple of things maybe about the city guests. There are approximately 8 to 10 spots at the city's Dairy Drive campground that are expected to be available for use between now and June 30th. So we fully intend and are in contact with hotel guests to take advantage of those spaces. The point of this resolution is to, despite the June 30th end date at the Plaza, to continue our relationship with focused counseling and to divert about $250,000 of ARPA funds that were part of the original contract. Divert those funds toward use to support people in alternative housing arrangements. That approximately $250,000 in combination with a $130,000 grant that Focused Counseling has recently secured from the state, and other federal home dollars that we will be able to bring to bear, we believe is sufficient to provide funding to pay for security deposits and for as much as a year's worth of rent for people in apartment settings and more stable housing settings. And so that's the work that is underway right now with respect to the city and focused counseling, and there's similar work being done with Dane County and with their service provider.
Thank you, Jim. You anticipated most all of my follow-up questions. Just one follow-up question. Is there any sense of optimism that although hotel rooms are certainly not a first choice of housing by any means, is there any sense of optimism in your conversations with your county colleagues that discussions with other hotel properties are in any way bearing fruit?
Well, I think they've identified Alder Verveer, and I don't want to get out in front of them because I think they were at a very delicate stage in those conversations. But I think that they had identified a hotel property that was interested in working with them. It wasn't clear this morning, and this is very much a developing situation. It wasn't clear this morning for what period of time that relationship might exist if they were still focused on an additional 2 months, or if a potential arrangement might go longer. But I would hasten to point out that at the former Plaza property, there have been two distinct populations of people being supported, being sheltered at the property. The county had 100 rooms, and the city, for the end of last year, I think, took advantage of the remaining 35 rooms that were available, and they're different. They're different populations and with different characteristics and circumstances. And so when the county talks about securing an alternative hotel site, they are talking about that with respect to only those guests that are currently at the Plaza and being supported with county funds. We made the determination earlier this spring, when the prospect of extending our stay to August 30th or August 31st was raised, that it would be a better use of the funds that we had available to us to try to use those funds for longer term solutions. That is, getting people into apartment settings rather than to just extend that stay at the hotel and find ourselves in a similar situation just 2 months later. So we've kind of moved on from the hotel setting and are focusing our energies and resources now on longer term solutions.
I understand. Thank you very much, Jim. Thank you, President Furman.
Thank you both. Any other questions on this item? Alder Carter, can I get a motion?
Move adoption of item 14-71642.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Not seeing any, I'm going to assume approval by unanimous consent. Thank you, everybody. And then, so the last item on our agenda is a discussion item. It's item number 15, which is the discussion of our meeting format for the 2022 Finance Committee, Legislature item 70352. I think we were all waiting to find out what was going on with council and find out if there was any room availability to do a committee meeting for finance if we did want to go hybrid. I did have an opportunity to touch base with Sarah Edgerton today and was told that there are not rooms ready for BCCs yet, but there would be the possibility, if the room is available and once it's all set up, to actually hold our meeting in CCB 201 if we wanted to do hybrid. But at this point, that wouldn't be possible, doesn't sound like, until the council actually does that. So there are likely going to be 3 mock sessions of meetings in 201 this month. And then right now, our first council meeting in person with a hybrid format is scheduled for July 12th. We have a finance meetings on the 13th of June, the 27th of June, the 11th of July, and the 25th of July. And so my suggestion would be that we, continue virtual until and have this discussion again either on the 11th of July or the 25th of July. Once we have a better idea of what 201 looks like, or if any of the other rooms like MMB 215 are ready for hybrid. But wanted to throw that information out and obviously open that up for discussion. Alder Carter, go ahead.
Yes, based on what you just said, wouldn't it be more prudent to have that discussion after the mock session on the 12th
So to be clear,
of July?
Yeah, so the real session, the real council meeting would take place on the 12th. So the mock sessions would take place. There's a few dates in June that IT is finalizing. So I guess the big question mark is, do we have the discussion after the mock sessions and then we could have that on the 11th? Or do we have that discussion on the 25th after we've actually had a council meeting and experienced it as a group?
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Anybody have thoughts about a date on when we talk about this again? somebody then should make some sort of motion and pick a date. Alder Vitiver, go ahead.
I'll just suggest that we reevaluate on the 6/27 meeting.
Okay. So we would be virtual for our, so your suggestion is that we'd be virtual for our meeting on the 13th and the 27th, and reevaluate this again on the 27th. I will consider that a motion. Alder Carter,
Second.
any discussion on that? Easy enough. So we've got a plan. We will be virtual for our next two meetings, and we'll talk about it again on the 27th. I assume approval by unanimous consent, even though it's a discussion item, so I'm not really sure how that works, but we will continue to stay virtual, and we'll have hopefully a more intelligent discussion on June 27th. I'll not say that was the last item on our agenda. It gives people plenty of time to go over to Transportation Policy Planning Board for the incredibly important hearing over there. Does somebody want to make a motion?
Move adjournment.
Second.
Unless I see otherwise, I'm going to assume an unanimous consent and tell everybody to have a great afternoon, evening. Thank you.